Good evening and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. My name is Naomi, going by the How To Chick, and I am so happy to be here on this first Wednesday in February. If this is your first time catching one of my lives, my name is Naomi. I go by the How To Chick. I'm a child of God, a wife, a mom, an attorney, a coach, a mentor, and a speaker. But most importantly, and a new author. But most importantly, I believe you can do anything, but you can't do everything and you must choose wisely. So I come on Wednesday nights around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk a little bit about life, a lot about love. And I talk about relationships, but specifically the relationships that we have with God and ourselves. I'm unapologetically a God girl because that has formed the basis of my entire life. And tonight, if you're here for the first time, welcome, welcome. I'm here to talk to you on the topic, what do you believe? And the reason for this topic is that I've recognized that so many people don't live below their potential because they want to. They don't live below their potential because they plan to. And they definitely don't live below their potential because they're lazy, unmotivated, or even complacent. Content is another word for it, where they are. They're living below where they're called to be. They're living below where they want to be because hope got drained out of them by life. Because that's what life does, right? One disappointment at a time, one reroute, one plan F that didn't come to fruition. And now we no longer want to look for a plan G or E or F or Z. We just want more. We pray for more. We try and we start, but we get hit with life, betrayals, setback, seasons of loss, grief, divorce, diagnoses, financial financial stress and trauma, big blows, losing homes, losing vehicles, losing careers, a long stretch where nothing seems to work out right and nothing is moving. And all of a sudden, you're no longer able to focus on where you were going because you're stuck in survival mode. And over time, what happens is not that people stop wanting what they've always wanted, they stop expecting it. They stop believing it's possible for them. You see, a lot of people will say they believe it's possible, but the truth is they may believe it's possible for someone else, but they don't believe it's possible for them. They didn't stop dreaming or hoping. In many cases, they didn't even really stop planning, but they stopped believing that this dream, this vision had their name on it, that it was no longer for them. And tonight, I'm here to talk to you about what you believe. Because the truth is, hope, and I've talked about hope before, because what makes hope so dangerous to the enemy and so necessary for us is that it is a root for the tree that grows the faith that we need to see anything that we've ever desired to see in our lives come to fruition. And you guys know, I've said this 1,000 times, but I believe that our belief systems form the basis of our lives. And so the reason I wanted to talk to you tonight about what you believe is this. It's very simple. If you can look at your life and truly say, this is what I wanted, this is what I prayed for, I'm living in my dreams, absolutely fabulous. But I am almost 110% sure that there is at least one place in your life where you wanted, saw, dreamed, believed that things would be different than what they are right now. I know for me, I believe in living in gratitude. I do, absolutely do. But I can also look at my life and see these are areas that I want to see improvement in. This is not what I thought my life would look like here, and I want to make it better. It doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It doesn't mean you're discontented. It simply means that, and I fully and firmly believe that discontent and not being comfortable where you are is impetus of the Holy Spirit to get you to keep moving. You guys have heard me say this 12 times. If you follow me, if you are not growing, you're dying. And so there are places and things that seasons that teach us lessons, right? They may be setbacks, they may be difficult, they may leave us testimonies that we'd rather not share. But look at Genesis 51. Joseph's brothers came to him and they were throwing themselves on their faces to apologize for threatening to kill him, throwing him in a pit, selling him into slavery. And Joseph is just like, you intended it for evil, but God intended it for good. And I'm not going to harp too much on that tonight. I'm simply going to say that if you can look at your life and see something, some place, your marriage, your children, your finances, your purpose, your career, your assignments. You maybe have always dreamed of living abroad, and you can see where life got in the way of that. Little things, day after day, little things, season after season, compromises, right? And it's not always just a lack of alignment, because in some cases it is a lack of alignment, right? We say we want to live overseas. We say that we want to start a foundation, but we are spending all of our money on trips and we're going here and we're going there. We're accepting promotions at corporations that don't allow for remote or virtual work. I do talk about making decisions that are in alignment with your goals, but in that case, I don't think that that's always a problem, because I think your decisions, what you do, where you spend your money, where you spend your time, and the decisions you make show your true priorities. I'm talking about people who really truly had a goal, had a desire. They wanted to be married. They wanted to have a happy marriage. They wanted their children to do very well and to play an instrument, for example. They wanted to be self-employed. They wanted to go back to school and get their CPA or their JD or their PhD. But life got in the way. And it seems that everything you've tried didn't work out. So instead of continuing to push, you decided that good enough gets it. And where you are is where you must have intended to stay, because you can't seem to get any further. And when that happened to me. And I'll tell you, for me, the area was weight loss. Maybe I struggled. I struggled for 12 years, 12 years. 12 long years. And, I could have given up. I thought I was going to give up, but, Hebrews 11, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. I just kept moving in the direction of my dreams. And yes, I would, and I've told you guys this before. I went through this horrible, like 6-year season where I would gain 25 pounds and lose 35. And then I would gain 45. And then I would lose 35, and then I would gain 50. And it just seemed like it was creeping up, up, up. And it's not that I'm unhappy with being overweight. I was unhappy with the fact that I wasn't moving well, the fact that I had pain in my joints, the fact that I didn't feel comfortable in my body, the fact that I could not run and keep up with my kids the way I wanted to. And I did not feel as though it was the best thing for my health. So I kept trying. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things comes unseen. And you have to notice the progression there. Hope comes first. You have to believe it's possible. See, I knew that it was possible for me to lose weight because I kept losing it. But what I was working on was how to keep it off. Hope is the ground where faith takes root. And when you have hope that is living, hope is watered by seeing things, right? Hope is watered by experiencing things. And just tonight at worship, I was talking to my kids about Stephen, and the fact that in many cases, the faith that we have isn't sufficient, right? For the life that we're called to live, for the things that God wants to do in our lives. Our faith is not sufficient, but our faith is not sufficient because we choose not to pray about everything and see God's hand in everything. See, when hope is alive, and hope comes alive, right? When you invite the Spirit of God into every part of your life, you can stand in the unseen and still take the next step in faith. But when hope dies, when you no longer see a possibility for yourself. And I say that very carefully for yourself because a lot of people will still say that they see things as being possible, but they don't see it as being possible for them. And the effect of that is when hope dies, is that you start calling your survival your best option. You start thinking that living in survival mode is wisdom when it's really discouragement, dressed up in nice clothes. When hope returns, when you start to dream again, and I've told you guys there's a book called The Dream Giver that my coach had me read that talks about the fact that, of course, we know that the dreams and the hopes and the goals that we have for our lives, they come from somewhere. None of us are an accident. We're not spare parts. God made us intentionally and purposefully. Jeremiah says that before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. And it's so important for us to recognize that we're not an accident. And God intended to create us. Ephesians 2:10 says we are his workmanship and we are created in his image. We are created to do the good works, right? God has specific good works that he created us for before we were even born. And purpose isn't something that you have to invent. It's something that lives inside of you. And so many people recognize that early because they're called really hard to something. And it can be really difficult, especially when you are dealing with parents who maybe have other visions, or you're dealing with situations where life happens and hits you hard and you make choices out of survival that take you so far off of the path that you do not see a way back to the path to get to where you thought you were going. And that is a reminder that when we get to a place where we don't see a way back, the only way back is hope, right? The only way back is hope, because hope reminds us that our future was never built on our feelings or our circumstances. It was built on the design by God and on the design that God created. Hope is a bridge between where you are and where you're called to be, and it will get you back to belief because it is the root on which the tree of belief grows. And so I want to remind you that belief is a line that divides. It is the dividing line between the people who do and the people who delay indefinitely. Belief is a decision, but it's a decision that shapes behavior. It's not like a dream. I've told you guys, I've talked about the difference between goals and dreams when we talked about dream setting, but when you believe something, it shapes what you try, what you're willing to do, what you will tolerate, what you will put up with, what you will excuse, what you confront. And when you start believing that anything is possible, specifically the thing that you have always wanted to do, you stop accepting life as it is and you start believing that you are going to have the life that you wanted to. And so when you do that, belief, right? It shapes what you do. When you believe that you can get back, you take the first step in that direction. And it's like you've been on a path, a jungle path that's, 12 inches wide, and you're winding up a mountain and you're thinking, I have to stay on this path to survive. But if you believe that you were called to be on the other side of the mountain, there's no path to get there. You have no idea where you're going. If you believe, you take the first step off the path. You can't wait for a perfect plan. You have to start with hope. Start with identity, whose you are. Start with purpose, who you were created to be and what you were created to do. Remind yourself who you belong to and why you were made. Then take one simple step that agrees with that truth. That step may be setting a boundary with someone who is disrespecting you. That step may be cutting people off to save money for your dreams. That step may be, putting in your 2 weeks notice at a job that's taken you for granted and never paid you what you're worth. That step may be simple research, looking into how to get back into that graduate program, how to get into that career field that you abandoned. One email, one application, one conversation, one boundary, one appointment, one doctor's appointment, one prayer, one journal entry, 1 hour of sitting down and writing because you know you were called to write that book. Your prayers become more bold when you have hope because hope isn't naive. Hope isn't based on what you think and what you want to see. Hope is based on the truth of your identity. It is an acknowledgement of who you were created to be. So I came tonight to ask you, what do you believe? What do you believe is possible for your life? Because hope says God did not bring me this far to leave me. He will never leave me. And when God has a plan and an intention, he never abandons it. And I know you've heard this at church, but I'm going to say it again. God never failed to take into account your proclivities, the way that you would mess up, the way that I would mess up, the way that we would deviate from what looked like the plan. See, it was all part of the plan. Just like Joseph being sold into slavery, just like Joseph being falsely accused and put in prison, it was all part of the plan. Hope says, even if I can't see it, even if it doesn't make sense, even if nothing in my life looks like what this should look like, I'm going to keep moving because I believe that if God put it inside of me, he can bring it out of me. Examine what you believe and hold on to hope. Because if you water hope, if you keep hope alive, belief will grow. And when belief is strong enough, you can do anything. You start doing the things that seemed impossible. You start living a life that felt denied to you, and you start walking and talking, creating, being a person that you had given up on. It is so important to recognize the necessity of examining our beliefs. And at the base of those beliefs, if you get all the way down to the bottom and the things that you believe are all based on negatives, what you can't have, what you don't have, what you didn't do, go looking for hope. It's time to rebuild that tree of belief on a solid root, a root that is based in your true identity. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. Choosing wisely starts with knowing your identity, your purpose, and who you were called to be. So examine what you believe and hold on to hope. I hope this has been helpful. Happy February. And I encourage you, if you have not, to check out my webpage. Wait a minute, did I even put that in here? I don't think I did. Let's see. Check out my webpage because I am going to be hosting a webinar for my 6-week cohort that's starting near the end of September. It's going to be starting on September 22nd. And I'm going to be hosting a webinar for my cohort on September 15. So check it out on my website. And I hope to see each one of you there. In the webinar, we're going to be doing some examination of our belief systems. But we're first of all going to be examining our belief systems in the light of how we live and what we do, right? Because you guys know I wrote the book on it. My book, my 30-day devotional for his glory, disclosing and destroying the spiritual roots of codependency, discusses how we get stuck by making decisions that are about other people and not about ourselves. And so my cohort is called the Good Girl Detox. The information will be on my website if it is not already on my website. I have to check with my husband. And it is 6 weeks to re-examining the behaviors that are formed by our belief systems. And we're going to create some boundaries and make some decisions that are going to change lives. I've talked about it before. If you have not seen it, go to my website. I'm only accepting 10 people in this cohort simply because a few years ago I gave up coaching because you guys know I have a family, I have a career, and I thought to myself, I don't want to take on clients and then not have time to do the work with them. But I've decided after much persuasion that it's time for me to do a cohort. And we're doing the cohort for 6 weeks starting on February 22nd. So if you want more information about it, if you just want to figure out what's going on, go to my website and check it out. And I think I actually have the link to the, I do. I have the link to the webinar. Give me a second. I'm going to put that in the chat. And I'm hoping that it will show up on Facebook. It usually shows up on Facebook, but not YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, I will post it in the show notes. I hope to see you next week. And I want you to remember that you can do anything. But it is so important that if you truly have a dream, a goal, a desire that God has placed inside of you, that you do that. That's the better part of wisdom. I'll see you next week. Have a good night.